Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Respawn Army, my subscribers, whoever cares to listen to the most epic dream. This is episode 5. We're going to be continuing the story where we left off last time and continuing the gameplay. This is the second half of the Nazi Zombies game that I have here. I can't remember if it was solo or with Rushman or what was going on, but this is the second half of the Nazi Zombies game. Later on, you're going to see some dual Skorpion team deathmatch. No, dual Skorpion domination on Hanoi. That's really cool. And then you're going to see two games that I recorded live this afternoon, just moments before recording this, or an hour actually. I had to go and give my friend a boost on his car, like jumper cables. But I recorded those two live, which is unusual for me, and they were my first and only two games of the day, so you can judge as you see fit. That's very average gameplay. That's what I do. The story is going to be continuing from where I all left off last time. Quick summary for those of you that haven't listened to any of the episodes. I have been, well, based on my experiences with power and deceit and self-control and other issues, I have been recruited into a group of vampires, a pack, if you will, a highly specialized, high-functioning pack. And I have been receiving my training. I've received 3, 4, 5 days a week thus far. It's difficult to remember. Training in strength, rules of being a vampire. Sunlight makes you sick. You can still die, but you're strong. And training against morality. That's the gist of this episode. The actual time spent in the dream is probably the absolute longest in this period, but I'll probably spend the least amount of time talking about it just because in my head, if I were to film it, it would probably end up being more like a movie or like a 1980s working out sports montage or short interspliced clips, because there's so much to talk about, but it all kind of runs together. I don't know if that was because of the heavy drug use, which I'll get to in a little bit, because these vampires do drugs, or what, but this part seems the most blurry to me when I try to put it together in a comprehensible, sensible sort of way. It's very, very difficult, and I have to extrapolate and elaborate more than I would really like to versus telling from pure memory. But let's get back to the vampire training. I'd been working with the Thinker, going over vampire do's and don'ts, sunlight bad, this bad, that good, strength. We did basic calisthenic reaction time strength exercises. He was monitoring our progress, and it was steadily trending upward, then peaking and flattening out over time. That's how you'll see a lot of videos go. If you click the little trend bar on most of my videos, you'll see the line shoot up and then flatten out. That's kind of the same thing with mine and John's respective skills. That's how they were developing, and when they flattened out, then there was no more need for him to monitor us, or not too much, but we still talk to him a lot. It's a group of, I believe it's 6 people now. So there's not a lot of people to talk to. We did a lot of talking, a lot of information, but the training was no longer physical. The physical training happened on its own. This was a mental training. This was a reshaping. As I mentioned in the previous episode, kind of when you go into the Marines and they break you down and they remake you as you see fit, this was the same thing. This was a mental breakdown and a refashioning into whatever form they saw most useful. The form that they saw most useful was something more akin to a hedonist, or perhaps a high-functioning sociopath, or something like that. It started off very simple. You're going to go to a bar, you're going to get drunk. Okay, you're going to go to a bar, you're going to do a little X. Okay, you're going to go to a bar, get drunk, do a little X, smoke a little pot. You're going to go to a bar, get drunk, do a little X, smoke a little pot, snort a little coke. You're going to go to a bar, get drunk, do a little X, smoke a little pot, snort a little coke, then we're going to do some heroin. It just kept going and going and going and going. And the vampire body was pretty durable. I didn't have any long-term side effects, so every night was a blast. And the same thing sexually too. This is a little bit of an awkward subject, but as a gamer, I am probably not the most sexually aggressive person. I don't hit on girls a lot. I don't flirt well. Or actually, I flirt extremely well, better than I should, but only when I don't mean to. I do it on accident. It pisses off my fiance when we're at restaurants, because I'm just trying to be friendly, but apparently I'm flirting. That's a different story. We're not going to talk about that. But it was about how to pick up women, how to read women, how to understand their signals, understand what they're thinking, how to get laid, how to get 2 women at once. That was a trick. That one took weeks to get 2 women at once, but it was great. Definitely well worth it. Okay, now we got 2, we're going to work our way up to 3. Okay, now that we're up to 3, we're gonna move into orgy territory. We're going to go have an orgy. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do that. And this is where the dominatrix comes in, or the seductress. This is where her specialty of understanding people and sexual identities and moralities came in much more handy than anything the thinker, the businessman, or the alpha could have done, because it was her cajoling me and John to do different things. Or John was very easy to cajole, to just cajole. Is that how I call it? Cajole? Convinced to do this. He was much more susceptible to this than myself, but he'll be different later on. We pluses and minuses here, pros and cons. I don't really want to. Oh, she's saying, you're immortal. You have to try it at least once. Come on, you can't die. There's no, you can't get a disease. It won't be awkward. It's like, so what? You'll be alive 1,000 years after they're dead. It won't matter. Just relax. Have some fun. We do this all the time. What's the point of having eternity if you can't enjoy it just a little bit? And constantly talking in my ear, whispering, touching, pushing, convincing. Very, very clever. Very smart. Convincing me to do this. Okay, so the next step after so many girls, it's like, okay, we go have an orgy. Okay, orgy is a little bit awkward, not really my style of things, but it's okay. Next day, same thing. Oh, I got another group ready. Let's go have this other orgy, and you just keep going, and you get more and more people, and instead of it goes from being mostly female to 50-50. And then some mostly male, and it gets more and more mixed, and each one gets a little bit more depraved, or a little bit more dirty, or a little bit more outside of my comfort zone. They're very slowly pushing me out of my comfort zone, and doing the same thing with John. John has to be pushed as well. He's not the expert on all things. He doesn't jump in head first, but he's easier to convince than me. He's easier to move and mold in this facet anyway. We're going to get to other facets of vampire training later. So we're doing that, and then it gets to the point. This is going to get really weird, and I don't want you guys to judge me, but just bear with me. Then it gets to the point, okay, we're done with women. Now we're moving on to men. And I'm like, you are fucking crazy. I am not fucking a guy. That is just not happening. And then the same process repeats itself. Oh, you gotta try this, you gotta try this. I'm like, fuck trying that. I'm not trying that, blah, blah, blah. I'm only attracted to women. Okay. So I stonewall, and then they have to change, or she has to change the methods again. The rest of the group, they're all well versed to this. They're helping as well, but it's not their specialty. They're just kind of playing along, going out, meeting people, getting the groups together, sometimes joining in. It's not, it's a casual thing for them. It starts out the same thing. Oh, you have sex with one woman, two. How about 2 women and a man? How about 2 men, you and some other guy, double team of women? And it works, the ratios keep working down to where I do eventually end up having sex with men, penetrative only. I didn't receive, and this sort of thing. But it wasn't a gay thing. It was just how would I say, getting your dick wet, or getting your dick in an ass, no matter what gender it might be. And if you're thinking right now I'm gay, just chill. We're going somewhere with this. And even after the men, that was another big barrier, another big thing that was broken down. Next step is we're getting into weird fetishes here. We're getting into light bondage, a little bit of torture here and there, strange games, strange toys, and the time is flying by. Think about this from my perspective. Every day you wake up, you're young, you feel great. Every single day you wake up, you're going out, you're getting drunk, you're getting high, you're doing something new with different people, traveling. Well, that's another interesting thing. We were traveling a lot, traveling all over the country, maybe different countries. God, it was hard to keep up, but I think it was mostly in-country, which for me would be United States. All sorts of houses, timeshares, apartment complexes, random bunker in the middle of nowhere, fucking Kansas. But every time you open the door and go underground, there's this huge sub-building, like an entire house underground, or with this many people, more like a very small apartment complex or duplex or multiplex or something underground, just waiting for us to use and have fun. Always very heavy doors, very thick walls, easily locked, good security, very defendable places, like little bunkers. You would think that we bought every single nuclear fallout bunker in the country and went and hid and partied on them on the weekends, but that's what was going on. This isn't one place. We're going all over the country, traveling months and months. It's a slow, steady process. And back to what I was saying, we're working more with toys now. We're doing weird fetishes, bondage, tying up, rape, that sort of thing. The rape was a difficult one too. They had to really convince me and work me on that. They had to work with the bondage thing, the play rape, and just work all the way up until you're hitting random targets. And at this point, you should start to realize that this is, if for those of you that are comic book fans, this is somewhat similar to the comic book Wanted. I'm not going to lie and say that it wasn't totally uninfluenced by that, because I do believe I had read that comic book several months prior to having this dream, and the type of moral, ethical re-education that's happening here is extremely similar to what happened in the beginning of that comic book. And for those of you that have just seen the movie and think I'm talking out of my ass, you should know that the movie and the comic book are completely different, okay? The movie is about this kid becoming an assassin and finding himself. The comic book, instead of joining a group of assassins, the group of supervillains have already won. All the superheroes are dead, so the only thing left in the world are supervillains. And they recruit this kid to join that group, and in that group there is no such thing as a moral, a law, a rule, or anything that even resembles that. And the moral, and he goes from a normal kind of, usually like a straight, not sexual, like straight as a board, square guy, to being absolutely corrupt and in that group. This is the same process that's happening here to me slowly. And I moved up to rape, torture, all sorts of strange kinks and fetishes and taboos, and it's all just getting very common. There's no substance I won't try, no drug, no nothing. And the next phase, that was the weak phase, that was the baby stuff. What you do with your dick is your own business, but the next phase is getting more twisted. The next phase is about complete ethical and moral, depending on where you are, re-education, a whole new set of values about right and wrong and what you can and cannot do. And the sense was that it was completely inverse, that they and now me are of a higher, we're at a higher level in the food chain. We're above normal humans, even though we are still technically human, but changed in some way. We are above the rest. We are beyond their rules, their laws, their religion. That was a difficult one for me. I'm a religious man myself, believe it or not, compared to the rest of this. It took forever for them to convince me that, oh, there's no God, there's no God, there's no God, or there is a God, he hates you, you shouldn't go to church, this is bad for you, this is a waste of your time, blah, 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 blah. Come on, look at what you've done. You fucked 1,000 people, you raped a girl, you killed this guy, blah. You think you're going to heaven? That's a joke. You should quit pissing in the wind. You're going to be on earth 1,000 years. There'll be 10 new religions by the time you're dead. You know this is made up, blah, 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 blah. And the argument that convinced me, the one that really got to me, was actually the alpha. I was just struggling with this one day. It's kind of funny how you can do bad things and still claim to be religious. And he said to me that, unlike the rest of the people, he didn't believe so much in science as much as this was a magic. This was an ethereal, spiritual, phantasmagorical kind of thing, and that once you become a vampire, you've lost your soul a long time ago. It was long parted from your body when you joined the club. You gave it up, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it kind of made sense in retrospect to my actions and how everything was going, that maybe I did lose my soul, maybe it was gone, maybe it was never there, but that religion wasn't my thing, so I left that behind. And then we're back to the food chain thing. We have to drink blood to live, and it went way beyond this thing in the beginning about, oh, we get this from the blood banks. That was true. They did get blood from the blood banks, but it wasn't in large quantities. This was very small, things that slip out the back door, that sort of thing, or a very rare type of blood. Every now and then you get one of those, and they would oogle and ogle over it. Though, to be honest, I really couldn't taste the difference. This was still tasting pretty great, though. I'd be hard-pressed to pick the right kind of flavor, but the blood was tasting great. But that everything that I know about right and wrong is wrong. The concept of right and wrong are for people with rules, with finite lives that plod around on this planet and eventually die, and they're created to help maintain an order. But for immortals, for people that can do what they want, that are free of religion, of a country, of a nationality, of politics, a race, a belief system, that things like rules and morals and ethics, they don't matter. They don't hold water. What is the point of playing by an archaic system when you're well beyond the system? You are in another dimension that is unaffected by it. And this was not a slow process. It wasn't explained to me like that. It was explained to me very slowly, convincing me that, I can steal whatever I want. I can hurt whoever I want. That took a little bit of a while, but in time it did become fun to go to a bar and find the biggest guy there and just generally be a dick and pick a fight. And he wants to go out back, that's fine. He wants to settle it right there with 6 of his friends, that's fine too. I'm superhuman. I'm fucking Superman up in this stuff. You gonna hit me? That's a joke. And then I tear everybody up. Broken arms, broken legs, crushed face. Accidentally killed a guy by hitting him with a pool cue just for fun. I wanted to see how, I wanted to hear that thing thwack against the head and hear it crack and break. But I hit way too hard, and it sank into the head a lot before cracking, and it was a pretty bloody mess. But it didn't matter that I killed somebody. It wasn't a person anymore. It was another lower being, and the rules weren't affecting me. I was changing, fundamentally changing from the person I was before to the person that they needed me to be. And that was the essence of the vampire training. But it wasn't just that rule. No rules apply. It's like, oh, you want to set somebody on fire? Dude, have fun. You want to anything illegal, immoral that you can think of. That's what was going on. And it left me, in a sense, very free, very unhinged from things. I really wasn't bounded by any convention, any rule, any law. Only the only ultimate law is that you have to live, you have to survive. But other than that, there's no, when I want to go out and do what I want to do, there's literally nothing and nobody telling me that I have to stop. You want to hurt this, you want to burn that, you want to take this, rape that, play with this, manipulate, steal. Nothing was off limits anymore. The entire world was just like one gigantic round blue plaything, or playpen more specifically, because I was still, of course, very small in comparison to the world. And that was vampire training. It wasn't, like I said, this didn't happen in a week, it didn't happen over a month. It was probably 6 months, a year, maybe more. Everything was so blurry. I don't know if you can hardly imagine life if you live every single day is every single day of your life is the hardest party you've ever had, and every day is more than that, and that's all you do. Just every day, party, 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 harder, 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 newer, better, stronger, faster. Just crazy. And the difference with John is that I kind of held back on the sexual stuff. That was really difficult for me, but holding back on hurting people, that was not a problem. Man, I break arms, legs, kill people, murder for fun, just tearing shit up. That was not a problem for me. That was easy. That was a blasty blast. If anybody here could ever, for a second, unhinge themselves from their rational brain, and when you feel that caveman instinct to smash, and how fucking rewarding it would be to hear something break or crunch, that was it, and it was unhinged, and it was going full blast, and no problem. John, on the other hand, was reluctant to this, where he was very open sexually, he was very closed to this violence, this killing wasn't his thing. It unsettled him in a way that I had been unsettled previously, and they had the same difficulties with him convincing him that this was okay, that you need to do this slowly, that they push him into fights, they make sure that he gets picked on, they make, blah blah blah. Do you remember how your family, they used to shit on you and do that? This guy's doing the same thing. Look at him. He's no better than them. Why don't you stand up to him? Why don't you stand up to them? Why don't you do this and do that? And he had a much longer time adapting than I did. But in time, that's all that an immortal like that has, is time. It changed. It changed John. He was the same as me now. We were both completely free and unhinged of everything except our undying loyalty to the group. Oh, the group, the group, the group, the undying loyalty to that group, because without the pack you can't survive. You can't live on your own. And we were the tanks. We also received training, albeit from a different type from the Alpha. He trained us in combat, hand-to-hand combat, mental combat. Not a lot of really secret special moves. This isn't Naruto where we're learning techniques. This is where we're learning brutal, short, effective gladiator or maybe some MMA style hand-to-hand combats, chops, punches, dodges, how to block a punch, how to outsmart your opponent, common fighting styles. And the big thing he was teaching was thinking ahead of what's your opponent's next move. If you can know your opponent's next move, that's how you counter them. And becoming predictable is how you die. When your opponent can predict your next move, you are dead. It doesn't matter if you're immortal, it doesn't matter if you're a vampire, if you're strong, if you can hold your breath for an hour or to get shot 15 times. If the enemy is able to know exactly what you're going to do next, and you're that damn predictable to do it, then it's only a matter of time before you're dead. You run into one smart person, one fat out out of shape, smart son of a bitch, and he's going to plan a trap for you, and it's game over. And the way he talked about it, the way he kept referencing this, I had a feeling that the person we were replacing, maybe I'm wrong, this is entirely a guesstimation here, the tank that we were replacing, the sadist, that's what I'm going to call him, because he was the big burly sadist, the meanest, nastiest fuck that they ever had. This was his problem, I believe. I believe that he was predictable, that he wanted the same things, that he did too much of the same things. And when the group was in danger, when they were attacked by somebody with a plan, not a relative looking for revenge, not a private investigator with a hunch, not a government agency running an investigation, none of this, but an actual person or a group of people with a plan to attack and kill. And the group was able to escape, but it cost him his life, or his immortal life as a vampire. And the Alpha did not plan on repeating this mistake and all the time training and recruiting new members. So he was teaching us a lot about combat. What else was there to learn? I remember the Thinker. We talked to him a lot. Lots of questions. Vampire this, vampire that. Oh, what if you're on hallowed ground? Lol. Garlic? Dude, garlic tastes great. We had garlic in the spaghetti last night. Are you an idiot? Oh, shit. Don't forget, I'm eating real food too. You know, I have to metabolize. We ate some good ass food. That's what the businessman did. He didn't talk as much. He was much more reserved than the rest. Whereas the Thinker, he talked a lot. He talked a whole lot, but we're going back. The businessman, very reserved, always well-dressed, but he was old. Everybody else was young, at the absolute peak of their physical fitness, but he was old and aged, and he seemed like an executive not that far from retirement, a man of respect with his gray hairs and such, and he seemed bitter about it. When we went out, it was very easy for us to pick up younger partners and such, but for him it was very difficult to pick up somebody of his own age. He would often have to go a little bit older, or a little bit dumber, or under what his preference would be. Not to say he didn't get lucky, and by God, as much time as he has, he's had enough time to get lucky, but it wasn't a guaranteed thing like everybody else, and that seemed to bother him. He was always reading a newspaper. I don't know why not the cell phones. I know he had a cell phone. He just almost never used it. I guess he was too damn old. Always reading about stocks and business, making decisions. He would place phone calls on occasion. It was really weird to hear him talk to somebody outside of the group, especially when we're being taught that people aren't sentient human below us, but he was talking to them as an equal. That was very strange. I'm trying to describe the group here a little bit. But he didn't say much about himself. I asked him, oh, what's your secret to business? Wouldn't tell me, just grunt, grumble, short conversations. Not a talker, that one, just always kind of grumpy. The Thinker is extremely talkative, always nerdy. He was the smart guy in the group. He knows he's smarter than everybody else, and every sentence that he says is an opportunity to prove that to you. Kind of annoying, but also kind of cool, because even though he was smarter and he was annoying, there was a lot to learn from that man. I picked up, glanced little things about vampire biology here, that how different the structure was, about how much my body had changed, whereas the looks had remained almost entirely the same. I did have little things. They weren't like huge things, but they kind of came in and out, just like you see on movies. I honestly can't remember the explanation for that, or his explanation, or why. But that was that. I talked to him. He had a lot of information about the group. He knew about himself. He knew about the dominatrix. He knew a little bit about the Alpha. He knew about the businessman, and he knew about the leader, the Queen. That's the one that I'm kind of leaving out because I'm saving that for later. She's not always with us on this. Sometimes she stays in the super safe bunker alone. Sometimes somebody stays there with her. Sometimes she goes out and parties and does the same thing, does drugs, gets laid. But the one thing she doesn't do, she never reveals herself as a vampire, because the last little bit of this training, after all of the sex, after all of the killing, the combat, the learning, the last little bit was hunting prey, how to find the right person to kill in the right time, how to drink the blood, how to be okay with this, how to have fun consuming the life force of another human being, and not another, but a human being, because I'm no longer one of them anymore, and enjoying it. And that was a little bit more difficult than just killing somebody, because it was more active, more brutal, because you could, when you drink the blood, it's like I could feel myself stealing their life and it becoming mine. I didn't really think it was a spiritual thing, but that's how it felt to me, and I guess it had to feel the same with everybody else. And that was a very difficult one to grasp. And then the next step up with that was eating little bits of flesh every now and then. I don't know why. I really don't think it helped biologically. It was more of a sadist power control kind of thing. That they're so much above people that they can eat them like animals. And just all the way up to the crazy, insane, torture, brutality kind of things that you would see in, say, maybe a Guro manga. No, I'm not a fan. I don't really read those things, but I have been to Encyclopedia Dramatica, and I do know that they exist, and I have seen some very unpleasant screenshots. You don't want, if you're at work, don't Google that. Don't, or it's not safe for life. Just don't Google that, okay? And I'm moving on, so that's vampire training. At the end of this long period of training, I am now a completely different human being. Or not a human being, I'm fully a vampire, fully dark, fully, I guess you would say, evil and unhinged. I am bound by no rule, no law, no religion, no God, no society, no government, and no allegiances except to my fellow brethren, and even lightly at that, because they did compete amongst one another for things. It wasn't too serious. But it's crazy to be able to act on any and every single impulse you've ever had or wanted, good or bad, good and bad at the same time, and have absolutely no consequence from it. There's no such thing as consequence for a being like myself, and I was there. I was a vampire. I was one of them, immortal, ageless, classless, beyond everything. And this is going to be a really good time for me to pause and move into the musical break. There's going to be a link on the screen, and it's going to go to Pearl Jam's Do the Evolution. It's, I believe it matches the mood of this video some point. I don't know if a lot of people here are religious. If you believe in evolution or not, don't worry about it. Just watch the video and play along. And what really comes to mind is you'll see a character in there. It's the female. She represents death. And there's a part in there about 1 minute in, 105, about it's Dancing with Death, the whole music and the animation and everything. That's what this whole thing felt like. That's what it felt like to unhinge yourself and to be free and to go and be something completely different that you're not, while at the same time having knowing that it's bad. You'll see the Dance with Death about 1 minute in, and that kind of fits the mood of this almost completely. And then toward the end you'll see a feeding scene of some sorts. That's kind of what it was like with the people. They weren't so much people anymore as they were cattle. They were little smushy, gooey, chunky things that you could chew on, and it didn't matter that they were all ageless, faceless, classless, genderless, all the same, like dog food or snacks or something. It didn't matter. So go ahead and watch that video, and I really think it fits well, and I'll can talk a little bit more after that. Okay, hopefully by now you have watched the video. Hopefully you did watch it. I hope it's not banned in some of your countries, because I know it is banned in some countries. And that's going to be, by and large, the end of this segment of the story. I'll tell a little bit about what's happening in the future, but we're about to do a rewind back to the past in the next episode. After all of this, there was still some reservation about me and John. There was still something that they didn't trust, something that the Queen didn't trust, the Alpha didn't trust, the Thinker didn't say fit right, the businessman predicted wasn't right, and the dominatrix says wasn't fitting. There was something about us that wasn't fitting into the group. We were holding back. There was something tying our lives to this physical world that they didn't like. So they set up something of a final test, a final ultimate test of our loyalty and approval of that group. Different ones for each of us. John's test was to go home and murder his entire controlling family and his controlling girlfriend. Just clean them out. Just get them out of his life and be gone. Completely free himself from those horrors and those memories. My final test was to go to the family of the people that beat me, the black gentlemen, all three of them actually, and clean out everything, the entire house, the man, woman, children, everything, no mercy, no forgiveness, completely wipe them from the face of the earth and destroy the one last bad memory that I had, the one last thing that could possibly cause me to quake or shake in the middle of the night, that one last nightmare of a knife in my guts and bleeding to death in a parking lot. That was my test. It was really more of a test to see if I could do it, if I could kill innocent people for basically no reason. I'd done a little bit of that, but it was always under pressure or not entirely innocent or something like that. But this test was set up to be different, and that's where the story is going to be going next. But that's not where the next episode is going, because we're telling this out of chronological order. The next, I believe, 3 or 4 episodes are going to be entirely backstory on the members of the group, because their paths all tie into their future and their ultimate destiny throughout the course of this series. And how I got this information is a little bit shaky, because throughout these many months of being there, the Thinker, he talked a lot. He knew a lot about people. He told me a lot about them. And you can learn a lot about people talking to them, gleaning information off of them, learning bits and pieces about their past, their history, their lives, their actions, and piecing it all together and filling in the blanks with my best guesses. So that's where we're going, some character backstories. They're getting largely very dark, but I think they're going to be very interesting. And a little bit of Q&A here at the end. A lot of people have asked me, is this all one dream, or did it continue every time you went to bed? This was all one dream. All these months, all these happenings, all this time, this was one dream. That's how it went. I think it was even during a nap. It was crazy. The end is complicated, and they asked me, how did you feel when you woke up? Well, when I woke up, I was sweating, chaotic, angry, heart beating, stumbling. My stomach felt like it was going to throw itself up, and I managed to stumble to the bathroom in a daze and turn the light on, and the light burned my eyes, and I fell over onto the toilet and stuck my whole face in like I was drunk, and tried and prayed to God that I wouldn't throw up, because the change was so rapid. But that's how that happens. And they ask a lot about the Shadow. What is the Shadow doing? Why is Mr. Shadow here? What is this and that? This dream, in the dream, if there was a representation of Mr. Shadow, it would definitely be the Alpha, but he's the architect. This is all his ploy. This is his creation, so to speak. But there may be other entities at play the more I think about this. Telling the story like this has caused a lot of introspect that I didn't honestly have or care to have before, because it was a bad memory. So other things are coming to light through time that I may choose to discuss later or may not. And that is that. There was something else I wanted to say. Let me think for just a second. Yes, this this dream I have, if I'm not mistaken, was the very last of my really bad dreams. This was kind of, I had a few after this, but I feel like this one was the final battle. This was the final confrontation between myself and the Shadow. So I guess I'm telling the very last, the very end story in my compilation of dream stories last. The crescendo of the act is going to be the first thing that you hear, so that perhaps you'll understand the rest better, or so that perhaps the audience would still be interested by this point, because it does tend to get repetitive over time. But the time that this takes place is after I'd had about a year of therapy dealing with Mr. Shadow and his crazy scenarios that he'd set up for me every single night, horrors and hell somewhat similar to this, or a lot worse. They can get a lot worse than this. And at the end of that, I wasn't having any nightmares, I wasn't having any bad dreams. I felt like I had won, like I had finished and was done. But this was the one last laugh for him, one last challenge, one last nightmare, one last chance to punish me, to have a go. And it was one hell of a go. And we are nearing the halfway point of this entire series, and I hope you're ready for what is going to be one hell of a conclusion.